Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly live show where I speak with an expert in the subject of mindset so you can change your mindset and ultimately get the amazing results that you want in your life. I'm super pleased to be welcoming Sebastian to the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, if we haven't met before, my name is Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, and I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. If you want to know more about that, I would love to connect, so please do reach out. But you're not just here to capitalize on my knowledge today, you are here to hear from Sebastian and his wisdom. So please do feel free to leave comments, ask questions. Even if you're not watching this show live, if you add those comments and questions later, it means that we can get back to you and answer them. So we love it when you engage. So, Sebastian, as I always like to start out asking people as they come on the show, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to true freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first thing I'd like to start off with is flow state. So, what is flow state? Maybe you've heard it, maybe not. The cool thing is that there's a lot of science and research for flow state. According to Forbes, top executives report being 5 times more productive when in flow state, which is a lot, of course, and it's a pretty thorough study. That was a 10-year study that's been done. So when we're talking about peak performance, peak efficiency, more productivity, up to 5x, that's what flow state is. And so that's the concept that I'm really passionate about, is helping teams work in flow state. So they're happier and more profitable, and ultimately they get to do what they love.
Awesome. Well, and for people who maybe, have heard the term flow state, or, maybe this is completely new to them, how would you describe what flow state actually is?
Yeah, so you imagine you're watching sports. We've all seen sports, whatever one it is, where the athlete is in the zone. That's where all of a sudden, if they're in basketball, they're draining the buckets, they're crossing people over. There's a sense of ease and lightness to what they're doing while they're performing their best work. This is flow state. So it happens in all different sports, and it also happens with our work, where there is that mix between our subconscious and our conscious mind merges in a way, and we perform our best work while we're having fun. Time flies, and it's great on all sides.
That's really cool. And what I like about that too is bringing it from the sports world to, this more corporate world. I came from a background of competitive sport, and, thinking of a lot of those lessons, of course, that serves me in my work now, but a lot of people might not make that connection naturally. They're going, well, work's not fun, it's a drag, it's whatever else. So, what are some of the challenges maybe that you see with people making this first connection, or even understanding how to start?
Yeah, so one of my core beliefs is I believe that we're born to do what we love. I believe we're born to do what we love as human beings. And when I started off in entrepreneurship, I've been a business owner of 11 years now. And when I started off, passion was a dirty word. It was a naughty word. It was a bad word in business that was looked down upon. God, what are you talking about? Just make money. Who cares about your passion? That's for artists and hippies. These are things that I heard all the time. And it's interesting to see how things have come full circle now. That the productivity that the corporate world has always sought for, the productivity that the small business owner has always sought for, is linked to passion, linked to doing what you love. And this opens up a broader conversation too of what are you okay at? What are you best at? And what is your zone of genius? And I believe too that every person has a unique genius within them. You might have to work at it, but it's your unique blend of what you love to do, your curiosities, and what your personality is naturally best suited for. So when those all things come together, I tend to find that it becomes very practical and tangible how to be into flow state, and also how to receive the results of flow state.
That's awesome. And yet at the same time, the first thought my mind came up with is, you talk about passion being a dirty word and it's only for hippies and stuff. And I think there is still a large percentage of the population who are in roles that maybe aren't perfectly suited for them. So you're coming in and you're saying, okay, well, great. The leader of this team is there because they love it, but 3 of their team members It really isn't their passion. They're doing it as a job. Can you still reconcile that?
Yeah, absolutely. A foundational philosophy in business is the right people in the right seats. And this is really the cutting edge way of approaching that. Taking a look at their personality profile, taking a look at what they're suited best to do. And so one of the things that comes to mind is what you shared in the very beginning, which is, saving people from damaged relationships. So when we're not in flow state, when a team is not in flow state, when a business is not in flow state, there's issues that happen. And maybe you heard of them: burnout, overwhelm. Maybe you felt these as well. I certainly have, and I'll share a bit of my story. But this is where I was with my agency once upon a time, where we grew incredibly quickly. We 11x'd our revenue in 9 months. I was 20 years old, and our team ballooned to 25 full-time team members. I was the youngest person in the company, owner of the company, and we were all running thin. We're running on fumes. We're burnt out. And all I knew how to do at the time was just work harder, put more hours in. And so pretty soon I found myself working 100 hours a week, um, feeling like a slave to this machine that I had built. And 100 hours a week, I remember even being like proud of it too. I was like, yeah, I remember like showing my screen tracker on Facebook, like and be like, look, world, I'm a man, like I'm doing this. And it's just like I face palm myself now, thinking of that. But that's where I was, and everybody was stressed on the team. So my journey being an agency owner is that on the second version of my business, yeah, the transition I went from was 100 hours a week, where agency burnout, to on the other side, where agency freedom. And the team was peaceful, the team was in their zone of genius, and worked out really well. In between that transition, I nearly died. I found my purpose. I found my spirituality. I did everything the opposite on round two. So that's like my journey that I bring with people and that I put into the software.
Wow. Well, and we had the chance to talk before, and you do have, a very powerful story of how this worked with you.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear, and for our audience to get an idea of where they can start with that. Like, how did you start that transformation?
Yes. Well, I started off with a personality profile from a mentor called Your Soul Contract. And he shared it with me. He said, hey, this is a personality profile that shows you who you truly are internally and shows you your true path externally and the blocks that get in the way. And he said, if you address these internal issues, that all this growth that you're having in your business, you'll be able to sustain it and continue its growth. But if you don't, issues that come up in here will come out there. And at that time, it was so profound. But also at that time, I was 20 years old, and all I cared about was making money and looking good. So that was my only priority. So I remember after the call, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this is so profound. This is like it's hit me right in the chest, this truth. And I was like, man, do I focus on this soul contract kind of spiritual thingamajiggy, or do I just focus on our next campaigns to make more money? I was looking at both of them, and I was like, on to making the money. Like I'll focus on that woo-woo stuff when I'm retired and rich. And lo and behold, those issues ended up happening. The business started bursting at the seams. And the issues that we ran into, these are the three core issues that I just see time and time again with agency owners. And maybe you listening might have felt these. Number one is one-on-one calls fill your schedule. It's like you love your clients, you love the opportunity you're able to do, or even your team too. You love your team, but you're like, oh my God, you're looking at the schedule and you're like, how am I going to make it through this week? Like how many cups of coffee? So that's problem number one. Problem number two is the never-ending Zoom call. That's like we got meetings or clients, and like again, you love your clients, you love your team, but it's like, oh my God, we're at an hour and a half, we're at 2 hours. Like, do these ever end? That's what I found myself in as well. Problem number two, and then problem number three is I had this like syndrome or this idea. It's like I call it the one project manager away syndrome. It's just like, oh, I'm only one project manager away from getting my weekends back. I'm only one project manager away from it all being good. But what I found during that time was that I'd, hired another project manager and I'd get some stuff off my plate, but then I'd find myself in more meetings that I'd be paying for. And so those three core problems, one-on-one calls filling the schedule, never-ending group Zoom calls, and then, more team, more complexity, more cost being the three key issues.
So, hopefully everyone does not have to go to the point that you did in terms of your career and your business to do a full shift around. How do they start that shift, or how do you help people nowadays start getting away from those problems?
Yeah, so there's three core solutions. And by the way, what happened as I was experiencing those problems, the business burst at the seams for a number of reasons. It imploded. And that's when I lost everything. And that's when I found my purpose, my passion. And I realized that, like, yes, money's good, freedom's good, like all those things are good. But what's the priority of them? And that's where I knew that service and helping the world in a way that would live on after I'm gone was the primary North Star of everything that I was doing, that I would do from there on. So after that happened, I went back to my mentor with humbled eyes. And I said, hey, let's take a look at that soul contract thing. Let's take a look at those subconscious clearings. And that's what led my my journey that ultimately create freedom. And true freedom to me means creating wealth with what you love to do while having the schedule that lights you up. And so the three core pieces for that, which we have in the software, which I'll go through right now.
Please, yeah.
So the first one is focus. So maybe you've heard of the 80-20 rule, that it's like, all right, 20% of the actions produce 80% of the results. So I like to think, well, what if we took that another step further? What if we did the 80-20 of the 80-20? And what that allows us to do is to focus on the highest impact tasks first, instead of getting pulled into busy work. That just happens for all of us, It's like there's always another thing to do, and then you sprinkle on some American culture, which I love America. And, our default is to drive, go, go, go. So having that focus, and what I found with my clients as I was working with them is that it was very helpful to focus, but it was probably 10 times more powerful to go to the subconscious mind. Because there's this quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton that says the subconscious mind is 100 million times more powerful than the conscious mind. So it's like, if we, tap into that, we can see things that we couldn't even see before. So that's where I really like to use the subconscious clearing to, take somebody where they're, and this is me too, like we'll go through the session together. I do them Thursdays, Thursdays at noon PST. But people come in feeling some level of stress, anxiety, feeling burdened, scattered, all these things, that we all go through. And then the tool happens, the clearing happens. It's like a guided meditation on steroids. And then they feel the inner peace, the calm, the clarity. And then from that place, we focus on what's your highest impact task for the week. And so that wraps up like one of three, like the focus module. How does that resonate with you?
Well, I completely agree on the subconscious piece. And, it's interesting because this show is about the conscious piece. It really is. Like, what is your mindset? And at the same time, I believe there's a lot of pieces that when you start reframing your mindset is another dive into that subconscious. Mm. It's another dive into saying, like, how deeply did I believe that thing? Mm. Oh, like, how much am I being influenced by these outside forces that maybe I wasn't paying any attention to? Mm. So I really love that idea is starting with, okay, what am I not aware of that's happening that's influencing me so much?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the focus. The three sections, by the way, are focus, flow, and genius. focus, flow, and genius. So that was focus. We'll get into flow. And flow is about weaving together passion, purpose, and prosperity all together. Passion, you're doing what you love, your team's doing what they love. Purpose, you're all aligned with the same mission. And prosperity, money's flowing every step of the way. And we got to have all three working in harmony. So with the flow feature, we focus on first identifying the work in a person's work week that's draining them of energy. And so it syncs with their Google Calendar. And we find, okay, what's the tasks, the activities, or the meetings, or all the above that drains them? And when we first were doing this years ago, found out that it was easy to overthink things and intellectualize, you know. And what we realized is that the body never lies. So yes, it might make sense of why you should be in that meeting and why this and why that, and that's all well and good. And if your stomach drops when you're thinking about that meeting, then your body's telling you. And your body, our body, is a reflection of our subconscious mind, because we didn't tell our heart to beat today, we didn't tell our cells to divide today. It's all happening unconsciously. So our body speaks to us, and that's what this the flow is all about: is finding what's draining you, and how can we get that off your plate to somebody else who is suited for that, or maybe there's a shift in the business model. What I see a lot of times with agencies is they're offering a lot of products that are just causing a lot of stress, and they think they need to do them. But really, if we just whittle down to like maybe a few or even one, it makes everybody happier. So that's what we find is what drains them in their week, but then also what gives them energy. And that's what we're focusing on, is what naturally gives you energy with your week.
That's fantastic. And I specifically love the idea that it's okay to let some things go. Because like you said, often we get very attached to, well, this is the way to do things, and we have to do X, Y, Z in order to get this result. And you can look at the result, this 80-20, maybe that 20%, and say, actually, we don't need that. It's okay to let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to share this with you since you said that. So one of my mentors, shout out to Yannick Silver, he leads the Millionaire Maverick group. So he has these things called Oracle cards that he created. And one of the ones that I just chose today, like before this, was this one. Which is,
yeah. What is no longer needed for you.
Absolutely. And so this is something, that I've just really been reflecting on, because if we're so focused on creating the value for our mission and everything's in alignment for that, then the best thing we can do is to let go a lot of things. And just like with this picture, like the plant can't grow if it has all these branches that need to be cut off. Like that's the illusion for us. Like, oh no, the tree can still grow even if it has the branches need to be trimmed. No, it's we need to trim those. And Steve Jobs has a quote that I'm paraphrasing here, but he says essentially that innovation isn't about saying yes. Innovation is about saying no to tons of good ideas. And that's like a realization, a deeper realization for me in the last couple months, is it's not just saying no to ideas. That's what I thought at first. Like, okay, just say no to ideas and then you pick the one. But no, it's like saying no to tons of good ideas, so you can just focus on the great idea.
I really like that. And to my mind, it brings up also like boundaries. Because when I do like boundaries and workshops with people, is, the idea is whenever you do say yes, you are saying no to something. Whenever you say no to something, you are saying yes to something. And when you have a set schedule, maybe where there's so many yeses built in that you have to be saying yes to all of them, you inherently have to be saying no to, these potentially great ideas or other things that would save you time or your passions. And being able to build a structure where you can more intentionally choose those yeses, or have gone through a process to say, what are my actual yeses? That makes a huge difference.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and I'm going to be thinking about how you said that, because like that, it really resonates with me, because You're always closing a door, even if you're saying yes. Uh, yeah, so there's something that comes to mind on that, which is, what was it? Oh yeah, so I find that this skill set requires a higher level of mastery for purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So if we're bringing our passion to our work, it requires us to be a higher level of master with boundaries, with that clarity, with that focus. Because otherwise, and this is what I found for myself, like I'm doing what I love, like I'm excuse me, I'm passionate about helping and serving in this way, but sometimes that can muddle of like, okay, is this call or this activity to generate business, or is it to give, or is it a social call? And so that's something that, again, a recent realization that I realized I didn't have to encounter. I didn't have to be at that highest level of boundaries when I just had a regular non-passion business. Like SEO is great and love the clients and everything like that, but it wasn't what I was here to do on this planet, like as a core thing. So for me, it was very simple just to be like, all right, this is, generating cash or not. Like, I'm not going to just be sitting around here talking about SEO as a passion, like without that. So if you're listening right now and you have a purpose-driven business, I think that's something for us all to keep in mind, that it requires a higher level of the boundaries from us. But then once we do, then it's all good to go.
I can empathize with that a lot. I know my purpose is very big, and that's definitely been one of my practices in my business, is narrowing down to how do I best want to use this. And without getting too tangential on that, because I feel we could go really deep dive into this. We're talking about purpose, and I've done my own practice to find mine, and you've done your own practice. How do you help people, or how do you recommend people start that journey to find their purpose if they haven't done that work yet?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, two things come to mind. So, um, and we're kind of going deeper into it, and I think it's good because it makes sense on the flow like category. Because ultimately it opens up these conversations, because it's like, hey, if these things are draining me during the work week, like what do I really want to do? And then it opens a bigger thing, like what am I passionate about? Like, what's my life even meaning for here? So it does open up these questions. So first I'd say is start with what you're curious, start with what you naturally are interested in. And one of the things I really studied the life story of Leonardo da Vinci and his personality profiles. And that was one of the things, is he had these curiosities that he would follow that didn't make any sense. And I'm doing quotes right now. It didn't make any sense at the time. And they were wide across the board. And, painting, obviously, sculptures, machines, weapons, like all these different things, dissecting cadavers to see like what was going on underneath. And it didn't make sense until it did. And when it did, it's like all these things clicked, and then he was able to innovate in different industries, because he was bringing these things together, these nuances that people hadn't seen before because they were so siloed in their way of thinking. So I'd say number one, notice what you're drawn to and give yourself permission to explore it. And number two, this comes from a friend of mine, Hannah Chapman, who's a wealth advisor, where she just asked, like, where's your heart at? Like out of all the world, out of all the industries, like out of all the different, industries, where's your heart naturally at? And I found that very interesting, because that was the first time I'd heard that. Okay, so I found it really interesting because when working with personality profiles, it really shared, okay, this is where I'm at. But there kind of was a gap of what industry do I apply this in? That is the best fit for me. And that's what I really resonated with. She shared is like, where's your heart at? Is it with the animals? Is it with the relationships? Like you shared, where is it at? And then put yourself in that industry, because then you'll naturally be passionate about it. You'll naturally be curious about it. And people will naturally trust you because they can feel that you care. And I kind of smiled as she first shared this with me, because I come from the internet marketing world, and like all the steps to manufacture trust, all these steps to create trust. And it's like, yeah, you could force trust, or you could just go where you're naturally suited and people trust you because their subconscious minds can tell that you really care there. So that's what I do, is you follow your curiosity, and then, go to the industry where your heart's at.
I love that. And just reiterating how important it is to have that connection. I mean, what you're talking about too is it's your core values. It's what at a deep level, brings you, like, what are you proud of at a deep level, and that satisfaction of knowing you've truly lived your values it's a core piece for humans.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the core values, that brings us to number 3. So in the 3 stack, we have focus, flow, and genius. So genius is looking at what's your zone of genius. Where are you best at? What are you uniquely suited to do? And this comes from Dr. Gay Hendricks, where you have your zone of excellence. It's like what you're good at, what people pay you for, what you get good reviews for. And then there's your zone of genius, which is that's where you can truly shine as best in class. And that's what lights you up as well. And so with their zone of genius, on this like diagram that he has, your zone of excellence is one step away from your zone of genius. But I feel like it might as well be a million miles away, because it's a trap. I feel like it's a seductive trap zone of excellence, because again, people are happy to pay money. It's good, but it's not that transcendent deal. So with your zone of genius, I like to look at different personality profiles, such as the soul contract, so impactful for me and my clients. Number 1, wealth dynamics. Number 2, human design. Number 3, got some other ones as well, and that's where we're building into the platform to have more and more. So it's like a buffet, pick and choose, and the more you have, the more picture you have.
Yeah.
And so, and taking a look at with your work week, where can you provide that 10x value? Where can you provide that 100x value? Because what I find with owners, with teams, is usually maybe an hour a week is focused on that 100x value. It's kind of like to the side, but it's like, what if we just put that as the focal, and what if you only work 10 or 20 hours, but it was just at that incredible, 10x value, 100x value? That's when things start to really, really shift.
Yeah, well, and that really relates to what you were saying too about the, how saying no to the good things might open up space for the great things. I love how that all comes together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I want to make sure you have a little bit of time to talk about how people are actually currently using what you've created, because it's not just coaching that you're doing. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about True Freedom and what you are doing?
Yes. So it's an operating system, and what that means is it's for agencies, where it combines coaching, software, and systems all together to be plug and play, so the team can work in flow state. And so one of the things that we focus on is profitability. So having a profitable company and having everybody succeed with less time and less effort and less stress. So what we do is we focus on first a 90-day launch program, where we're closely with them, getting integrated with their team. And then from there, it's scaling up and up and up. And again, scaling the profit up and up and up. Because when I had an agency, like, we scaled up our revenue too, but that payroll just all of a sudden went as high. And so that's a big issue I see with agencies and just in businesses in general. It's like, grow revenue, but then you look at the end of the day and there's not much there. And that puts such a level of stress on everybody, and the team feels that. So what I'd like to see is healthy, happy, profitable teams that are sustainable, where everybody can relax and they know that, all right, there's solid footing here. And then there's, more money for bonuses and perks.
Yeah.
So in the 90-day, core launch program, we focus on one of those core features a month with the team. I do team onboarding walkthrough demos with them. So focus, flow, and then genius, all through the 90 days.
Awesome. Well, we have the website in the description, so people can go check that out, get a free demo, which is super cool. So I would certainly encourage you guys, if this was interesting to you, if you do have a team like this, reach out to Sebastian. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. This was such a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me as well. And yeah, I just keep thinking of your mission, of helping save the damaged relationships. And I, yeah, totally love that. Totally support. Because what else do we have in this world? What else do we have in this world if we're not doing what we love with the people that we care about and having the time and resources to have some freedom? So totally resonate with it. And yeah, if you're a purpose-driven agency with a team of over 5, virtual team, come check out the website. Schedule a demo. I do want to say too that my dream with this is to have it free for personal use forever. We're not there to launch it yet, but so if you aren't that specific, like if you don't have a team yet, that is in the plans, that the personal use of that will be free when we launch that, forever and ever, because the core mission of the company, core mission of my life is to help free 1 billion people by 2050. And so everything that we do is with that mission, vision, and core values aligned up. So, and I can't do it together. I can't do it by myself, but with aligned people like yourself, we can really make a big shift in the way human beings operate.
I fully agree. I love it. It's a fantastic mission, and any way I can support, I would so happy to do that. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who joined us listening and watching. We'll see you next week, and remember, every thought counts.